Welcome to Awakening, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christian Strang, and today we have a very special guest on the podcast, and I am so excited to introduce you to. This is a dear, dear soul sister of mine, Eva Andrea. She is an incredible, sought-after mentor, speaker, and spiritual teacher. She leads retreats and workshops all over the world. She resides in beautiful Norway with her children and cats. She assists lightworkers in bringing their books into form. She is an incredible soul. Eva and I connected many, many months ago, maybe last year, I believe. No, at the start of the year when my book, Love Letters from Mary Magdalene, came out, we got connected through someone in my swirl, and instantly I just fell in love with her, and you all are going to fall in love with her as well. Eva, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Wow, thank you, Christian. I almost feel like crying just feeling your warmth and this beautiful welcome. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you and your listeners.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here too. Yes, listeners, please know, most likely Eva and I will be crying and gushing over each other. We love each other profoundly, and being in each other's energy is just this beautiful experience. So I'm so grateful that you were able to come on the show, Eva, and share your magic and wisdom with our listeners, because as many people as possible need to know about you and your beautiful work in the world. So we'll dive into it here. On Awakening the podcast, when we do these interview series, we want to hear your awakening story. We know that awakening is not a one-time event. It happens throughout our incarnation. So whatever awakening story you feel guided by spirit to share, we'd love to hear, to learn more about you and how you be and are in this world. So I'll open it up to you to share here.
Thank you. It's such a joy to be asked this question. And I was reflecting on, the whole journey actually leading up to this interview, and I was feeling how actually the awakening journey for me has been like this series of softenings, deeper and deeper into the heart, deeper and deeper into love. Um, and I grew up in a Christian community, a close Christian community. So from I was little, I heard of God, I heard of angels, and my first meeting with my angels was when I was 6 years old, and I woke up in the morning and something was different in the room. I could just feel there was something there that was different. And I remember seeing this white glowing light sitting on my desk, on my writing desk, with a kind of playful energy, and it had the same size as me, I guess, not to scare me. And I just felt so curious and this warmth, and I almost wanted to cry when I saw it. And of course, I was a little girl, I was 6, so I ran out of my bed and tried to touch it, and then it disappeared. So I went back into my bed, and there it was again. And again, I ran over, but it disappeared. And at the third time, I understood that I was not supposed to touch it. And then I started communicating, asking it, are you the one who protects me? And I got a yes from the angel. And I remember this feeling of awe and this gift. And when my family called me to the breakfast table after the experience, I could just tell it. Today I met my angel. And it was like, wow, cool, So that was my first connection. I think as a child, I had this opening and this communication. And then, things closed a little more down, and I became a very personal Christian for many years. Had a very deep connection with Jesus over the first many years as I grew up, and still there was something about all the dogmas that was surrounding me, and this kind of closed, we are the only ones who have the truth, that kind of energy. But something shifted when it must be now around 11 years ago, when I met divine love in my bedroom. And that's another story. But something happened that night that shifted everything for me, and changed my life. What should you say? The timelines of my life, I feel. I don't know if you want me to go on and just keep sharing, or if you have any questions, Christian.
Oh, I am riveted. Yes, I have many questions. I love hearing these stories. Of course, that's why I do these interview series. So thank you for sharing this. So I want to ask a question here. When you went to the breakfast table after that experience at 6 and you told your family, yeah, I met my angel today. She came to greet me. It sounds like they were totally accepting. I mean, what was the response? How was that conversation at the table?
Well, I just remember that it was kind of as if I had just said that I had met a friend, that it was so natural, that it was no big fuss in a way. It's like, yeah, cool. It was kind of expected, right? So, it was very natural. And I think that was one of the gifts of growing up in this close Christian community, that it was very natural that there was a connection to something greater than myself. That was always with me as I grew up. So I think that is, even if I came to a point where I kind of grew out of the egg, if you know what I mean, and
Yes.
something happened when I had that meeting with divine love that I also would love to talk about.
Yes.
That broke me open to a much greater understanding of God, of love, right? But I see the gifts, even if it was within some limitations, if you know what I mean.
Yes. And I really want to highlight, I grew up also in a very strong Christian religion, but I could not have brought that experience to the table and my family been accepting. They would have had a very different response. So I really want to honor that, I believe, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this as well, that when we incarnate into these religions, it is because it gives us a spiritual foundation. One of my biological sisters and I were just talking about this. Like, we're so grateful that even though we've expanded beyond the confines of religion, we're so grateful that we came into an environment where spirituality was the foundation for life, because that is certainly the foundation for my life. So I believe that's the gift we get, being in those religious households. And I want to really honor that you incarnated into a family lineage and a religion that was like, okay, yeah, you met your angel today. That's cool. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love that perspective, because it helps us to take the gifts, right, and the gratitude with us, and yeah, I totally believe that we choose where we incarnate, and there's a deeper meaning to it, right, and somehow something a wisdom we get from that experience. And I also find lots of wisdom still through, the teachings of Jesus. I know you do that too, right? From another deeper spiritual perspective, maybe, but it is still a very strong inspiration in my life now, even if I don't see myself as a Christian in that way, as I would back then. Yeah. So life is interesting, right? How we are guided, and how things happen. And then, I had this experience 11 years ago where...
Yes, please tell us. I want to know all about this divine love.
Because, that was like a real before and after moment. And before this night, my little family, we were going through a deep crisis, and we had 4 little children, and there was a crisis in Denmark, and we had lost everything. We went broke, and we had just received a letter with the red letters on it that we would be losing our house, and we would be thrown at the street the coming week. So it was a big shock, and it was a very challenging experience that really shook my foundation in a way. And I had this nightmare this night, dreaming of black shadows pulling us apart. And, I was feeling like screaming in my dream. And in that moment, something just pulled me up to sit in my bed. That is the best way I can describe it. And the whole room was vibrating with love. It was like all forms were vibrating. Even my baby that was by my chest and had been breastfed, and my husband by my side, everything, all forms were just shivering with love. And there was this sound in the room that I heard with my physical ears. It was like in the room, the sound of love, the sound of God, I would say. It was the sound of the most beautiful sound I've ever heard in my life. It was like it contained all music in the whole world. I think that's the best way I can describe it. And it just, permeated all of me. This love, this otherworldly love that was like thousands of times the love I have ever experienced before. And it's hard to describe feeling so loved that there's nothing about you that is not loved. There's nothing about you that is not embraced in this unconditional love. There's no judgment, no separation. And then I heard a voice in the room, a warm voice that gave me a message that I can best describe as there's a loving reason to all of this. And I was just crying, sitting in this experience, and I don't know how long it lasted. It felt like it was an eternity, but maybe it was just a minute, I don't know. And when it kind of faded slowly, it was like the song just stayed with me, that sound of love. And it was like rolling in my blood over the coming weeks. And no matter what happened, and we actually lost the house and we had to, deal with all the challenges. But I was feeling this love just carried me. And I knew that all was well, and all was love. But it was also creating these major cracks in my understanding of God and myself and the world and everything, because this was not this strict God that I had learned about in my church, right? And this was such a direct experience that I couldn't, there was no way to explain myself out of this experience. It broke me open and made me also, over the time that came, I think something was totally activated in my whole energy body. So I started meeting angels again. I started meeting Jesus, and I had channeled letters coming through from Jesus, and I had so many esoteric experiences. So it was like suddenly I was just sitting in the meetings and feeling like a stranger because I didn't fit in anymore, and it wasn't my truth anymore, right? And that started this whole new journey. So thank you for listening. I get carried away.
Oh, I love it. No, the more details, the better. We love it. Thank you so much for sharing this. I wrote this down as you were speaking. It was the sound of love, the sound of God. And that was a different story than that very restrictive, judgmental sort of Christian God. And so have you ever heard that sound again? Is there anything close to it that you go, oh, that kind of is the same sound? Tell me more about that.
I feel sometimes in meditation, when I go very, very deep in meditation, that I get like these glimpses of it again. But it's more like a whisper, more gentle, or I have never had that same exact experience again. I think it was like a once in a lifetime kind of experience, like the curtains were just opened, so I could see and feel and sense reality.
Yes.
as it was. But I feel it's like when I hear people talk about near-death experiences, it was like that. I think it's something you
Wow.
could compare to that,
Yes.
but just without dying. So it was a gift, and I know it was grace. It was a gift, and sometimes I feel, why did I get to experience that? And I think maybe because I needed it, or maybe because I'm a writer and I can speak about it, I can share it.
Yes. Yes.
I don't
That
know.
that is so profound right there. Just knowing that we will have some of these experiences so that we can share them to assist others. I want to dial back as much as we can here, even as much as you're called to share. Um, because many of our listeners have had this kind of experience, not in the same way, but an awakening experience. And like you said, you're sitting in the church meeting and you're not the same person anymore. It doesn't fit anymore. And now what do you do? Do you have any words of encouragement for those who may be finding themselves, because we are in this time of huge expansion? We are recording this in mid-September and of 2023, and huge choice points are coming up for all of us with the equinox. There's this huge expansion happening. What do you say to a soul who is going through an experience where they do not fit into their current reality any longer, and they know that they're forever changed and different? And what do we do from there? And you may wish to answer this by sharing what you did, however you want to address this, but this is such a powerful moment that happens for all of us on the awakening path. And it's so inspiring to hear how others have walked it.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very profound question. Um, you know, there's for me there was a point where I was feeling like the chicken and the egg that couldn't breathe. And when the chicken starts to break the shell open, it's actually to survive because there's
Wow.
no oxygen left in the egg. There's no nurturing for the life anymore. And I think that is the feeling, and it actually comes very naturally that when the shell is too small, you will have to break it somehow to be nurtured and to live and to step into your new form. Uh, and for me, it took a year or 1.5 years from that profound experience to actually taking the physical step, because it was a big step. It was letting go of everything, risking to lose family, friends forever, because it was very conservative. And moving to Spain, I actually chose to move to Spain with my husband and my children to start a whole new life, because we needed distance and to create a whole new chapter. But that was taking all of the courage, that it was the feeling of stepping out over the Niagara, right? So I really honor the courage it takes to say yes to this new life. And it's not that, I also say, it's not to say that we all have the same journey and it has to look the same way,
That's right.
because uh, it was kind of dramatic, right? But
Yeah.
I think my soul had chosen this kind of very radical, uncompromising path.
Yeah.
Um, and I also honor that it's not maybe how it's going to look for everybody. But I want to share a little experience I had that really helped me to understand something within this choice.
Yes.
I was sitting on the floor the last evening before traveling to Spain. I had packed everything, had given everything away, just knew inside me that I needed to take this step for my to be in alignment with my truth. And I was crying. It was a deep sorrow to let go of everything I knew. But it was guided, and it was strongly guided. I felt my intuition guiding me. And as I was sitting there in this sorrow and also feeling scared, it was really scary to jump like that. I suddenly felt a presence in the room, a sweet, sweet presence of my cousin that had died a few years before, who was a dear, dear friend to me. And this was the first time I felt her like that. But she came to me and I started communicating with her. And I asked her, I said, can you see how hard this is? now that you're on the other side, maybe you have a good piece of advice.
Good question. Good job.
Could you maybe help me out here a little? And she showed me, it's a little hard to, because you get like a transfer of information, right? But she
Yeah.
showed me how I would put these words to it. You can choose love whatever way you choose to go. If you,
Mm.
or if you stay, you can choose love, and it's love that it's about. Um, and and that has and that gave me such a comfort. And I know that as long as we follow the path of love, it can look in different ways. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to explain.
Yes.
Does
Yes.
it make sense? Because it's about the love, right?
I'm just taking notes as you're speaking because this is so good. As long as you choose love,
Yeah.
everything will be okay. That was the message.
Yeah.
Wow. And how did you let that guide you? So now you're going to Spain, you're leaving everything behind. I totally resonate with leaving friends and family behind. I lost my whole community and all of my family when I left the Christian religion I was raised in. So, and I moved to a new place when I did that. So I totally resonate with all of that. How did you let that inform your choices moving forward? Is there any choice that stands out to you? You get to Spain, you've got this incredible message. As long as you choose love, everything will be okay.
Yeah. Well, I think it has just been like a red thread,
Mm.
um, that, you know, what would love do? Asking myself, what would love do in the different choices, in the different situations? And that was actually also a message that I got once from Christ consciousness, where I asked about motherhood, and he said, just ask, what would love do? So I
Mm.
feel that it has been like such a simple, very simple, but also very profound path, right, of love. And I think it can be hard when you look back to pick different examples. But I think for me, following also what started to, something started to emerge, after this brand new beginning. I felt like a wine, where everything is
Mm.
just cut away and you stand there naked with your arms to the sky and you just raw and cut to the essence. Here I am with my soul, guide me,
Yes.
show me why I'm here, what I'm here to give, and what my purpose is, right? Because when you stand there without any of the dogmas, you're just so naked and
Yes.
in the unknown. But this is where the potential comes, and this is where the life force starts, sparking. And I started being more and more inspired, or inspired to write more spiritual books, because I had actually already written one book. As the first woman in this community, I actually wrote a book because I was kind of in that transition. I already wrote one book, but I started from there to write more spiritual books. Spiritual
Yeah.
children's books first came through, and then spiritual novels, and also doing retreats and all these things that I have been doing the last 10 years. It just started like a fire in a way, just to spring. And I have followed step by step what has been given to me, of inspiration and guidance. So it's been a total path of surrender, actually, to use me, love,
Yes.
who I am and what I can do, to serve. So
Mm.
it's also been a path full of surprises.
Yes. Isn't that true? The spirit-led path is so surrender and surprises. That is perfect.
I think you know that one.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This
Yeah.
is so beautiful, Eva. And so you started a whole new life in Spain and
Mm.
were being led by love, sort of writing the spiritual books, helping others, mentoring, serving, having retreats and workshops. And now here you are 10 years later.
Mm. Yeah. It's yeah, it's beautiful when you look back. So I also
Yes.
deep gratitude for to spirit and to my soul also for guiding the way, Yeah. I have a little mantra that I put under my signature in my letters, and it says, um, "You are loved, you are precious, and your soul knows the way." It's kind of my little
Mm.
mantra. Maybe I can pass that on, because that's how it is.
Love that. And your soul knows the way. How beautiful. And your angels and your departed loved ones and all of the support you have in non-physical can be there to assist, especially when we're going through these expansions. I love your examples and each of the stories you so beautifully shared with us today, that the angels presented, the departed loved one presented, divine love, the sound of God filled the space. Oh, this is something I didn't get to clue in on, but I want to, or hone in on. I want to now that, you're in this time of you were in that time of crisis, and it looks like from the outside, oh, this is terrible, right? You're losing the house, all these things are happening, but what's actually happening is a massive timeline shift.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I just want all of us to take that in, that when we feel like, oh, it's, this is horrible and this thing is happening, and the end of the house or the job or the relationship or whatever it is, that
Exactly.
can be your biggest timeline shift yet, which is what you experienced, which is what a blessing, and how grateful we all are, Eva, that you were willing and welcome to that upgrade, because look at all those you have served, all that you continue to create, and all those you continue to serve in this higher timeline. Like, incredible.
Thank you. And I love what you say about the understanding those timeline shifts, because that is where it really takes trust, right? And I know there's so many who go through right now, as you say, also these shifts, and it's
Yes.
also a dark night of the soul.
Yes.
And my last book, I wrote about the dark night of the soul, because it was so important to me to really, understand the gifts of that darkness,
Yes.
and what is it that the darkness actually offers, and how the darkness actually protects us while we are upgrading, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And it's hard to feel when you are in it, but it's so
Yes.
good to remind
Yes.
ourselves and each others that um, it is love. It is love. It's a
Mm.
soft, protecting darkness when our senses are blinded and we cannot see a hand before us, and we just have to surrender. It's
Yes.
love.
Oh, you're going to make me cry. That is so beautiful. When our senses are blinded, we can't see what's before us. It is love.
Yeah.
Just breathe that in. Wow. So beautiful. And that is why we have this interview series, and why, Eva, what all that you're sharing is so perfect and beautiful, because we do need these reminders when we are in it, because we can't see, and it can be feel scary or feel overwhelming, but knowing and hearing others who have walked the path, and these beautiful reminders that you're giving to us. And I love that you wrote about it, so that there is a testament, right? A sacred text that souls drawn to can bring in to assist them and soothe their soul as they are going through the timeline shifts and upgrades. So
I was meeting with oh, sorry.
no, go, please.
Yeah, I was just feeling when you say that I was called to go to Avila to meet Saint Teresa of Avila, if you know about her. She
Yes,
wrote this old book called The Castle of the Soul.
yes,
And when I was called to go there, it was like in magical, weird ways that I just I was just pushed and called to go to Avila. I'd never been there, and I knew nothing about Teresa. But I was going through a dark night of the soul, because at that point it was like the even deeper surrender of letting go of my relationship, you
yes,
know,
yeah.
after 20 years.
Mm,
And it was such a deep twin soul journey or soulmate journey or whatever it was. And it was so hard for my mind to accept and understand.
yeah.
and was maybe the deepest surrender, I think, of all of these.
Yes,
and,
yes,
then I was called to go to Avila, and I met Teresa in spirit, and also her soulmate, John of the Cross, who wrote
yes.
about the Dark Night of the Soul, and he was the one who actually put words to
Mm,
this state of going through these transformations. I just felt like sharing with you that as I was sitting there in her first little chapel, it was like the tiniest church I've ever seen. It was so small, so simple. And as I was sitting there, she came to me in spirit. And actually, with my open eyes, I saw her in front of me. And she had
mm,
this feather pen in her hand.
mm,
And then she just wrote on my raw heart, "Write, write, write for the beloved."
mm,
And in that moment, I just gave a promise, that kind of sacred promise, to do that and to write this book, even if it was so vulnerable, to write about, as I was standing in the middle of the darkness. Um,
yes.
so that was also a yes.
Mm, so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And how there are these multiple awakenings that happen at various levels. I too have experienced that, the awakening that has you leave the religion, the awakening that has you leave the love you never thought you would leave, the awakening that has you totally shift the work that you do, and then all of the awakenings that come within that. And this is the path of being in human form, is awakening. And that's, when my spiritual team brought me this name for this podcast, that it would be Awakening the Podcast, I was like, really? Awakening? And now I see it, and in hearing your story, I feel it even more, because these awakenings are profound and they happen in a variety of different ways, and they have to, for us to ascend while in our body. So thank you so much for all that you've blessed us with today. I also want to get your take on co-creating the golden age. So we're aware that we're awakening, we're shifting into higher timelines, and that eventually the collective will be living in a golden age again. But right now, those of us that are aware of our awakening, we're actively engaged in the timeline shifts. We have the opportunity to create our golden age now in our life, and we're really seeding that grid for when the collective will experience it. I'd love to hear your take on how you're co-creating the golden age in your life currently, or what you recommend for clients and those you see and work with, for how they can, what's, one small thing or one big thing they can do to start experiencing their own golden age now.
Mm. It's beautiful. I love the way you speak about this, and to me, it's like, how can we bring heaven to earth
Yes.
every day? How can we integrate and live the love in the now? It's very simple in that way, because for me, it's all about love, right? So this awareness of allowing the love to infuse every moment, and practice it is, of course, a practice, right? And we can fall in and out of it, but it's still this, to live life from love, from oneness, from remembrance of who we are, and also bringing our gifts, these light seeds that we have inside us, these gifts, and what we came to bring, and follow our callings, and they can look in so many different ways. And for me, I also have become very guided to help light workers with their books and their writing. And it took me also a little to actually say yes to that, because I loved to write my own books, but to be a midwife for these books, and it's just my tiny contribution,
Mm.
and we all
Yeah.
have our contribution. But I also want to say that those of you who feel that you have a message, that there's something in your soul that longs to express your truth in writing, do it, because your words are medicine and your words bring manna to this the world, right? So it's important. It's all our contributions are needed, right?
Yes. Oh, I love that. So I'm going to highlight and summarize here what you shared on how can we live our golden age now? What's something we can do to bring heaven to earth now? And you shared two really valuable pieces here, allowing love to infuse every moment. You know, going back to that question that you asked yourself as you were expanding to your higher timeline, what would love do? How can I bring more love into this moment? And then to follow your calling and make your contributions, whatever those are, to follow that calling that's so important in order for the collective to live in a place of light. We have to, as the way showers, if you will, we have to be living from our true light and from who we truly are. So I love, love, love that you shared that. And those that are writers, your words are mana, your words are medicine. I could not agree with you more, Eva. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your incredible soul and spirit and journey with us. It is such an honor to have this time with you. How can folks stay in touch with you? How can they stay connected to you?
Thank you. Just before I answer that, I gotta say, Christian, your books are so precious, and I just love the light and the energy and the wisdom that flows from your words and from your books. And if you haven't read Christian's books, go and get them, right? Because they are amazing. And I just want to say thank you to you for doing what you do, also with this podcast and with your books and everything you do, because it really, really makes a difference.
Thank you, sister.
I just had to squeeze in a little PS here.
Thank you. You're so sweet.
And yes, you can go to my webpage, Eva, and then there's a dash, I think.
Yes,
Is it a dash
yes,
or a slash?
yes, yes, dash. Perfect.
You know, I'm Danish, so this is a little hard for me.
You're
Eva,
doing so great.
dash or slash, Andrea.com. And there you can also get a free meditation if you want to meet your muse, and your divine muse will help you to feel what it is that you want to write. So you can go and get that for free, and see more about my work, and how I can help you in different ways.
I love it. And we're the Dash sisters because you're Eva Dash Andrea and I'm Sacred Dash Spirituality. So it's perfect. And I have to tell listeners, you want to be in Eva's email swirl. She writes the most beautiful emails. I will literally read your email like it's a delectable chocolate and then have a cry and then send you an email back telling you how much I love you. So you have to get on her email list and be in her swirl because she sends out the most beautiful emails. Thank you again, Eva, for being with us today. You're such a gift on this earth. And I'm so grateful that Spirit united us in the magical way for the Mary Magdalene book, and that we've been able to stay connected because you are a true gift on this earth.
I love your question. Thank you.
I love you, dear. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you who've been listening. If this podcast episode was a benefit to you, please share it with one other person you know or on your social. You know, this stuff happens grassroots style. So please share it with your swirl. And you can always go to sacred-spirituality.org for free transmissions, meditations, all the good stuff, and to listen to other episodes of Awakening the podcast. Thank you again for listening. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Christian Strang, and this has been Awakening the podcast.